So in this tutorial, it's just a quick follow-on, which will give you a few things to do if you're a wee bit ahead of the curve and you've managed to get finished already. We covered adding different color schemes and so on using the materials library, but one of the other things we might want to do is just go into some of the finer details and tidy up. So around these edges here, for example, we want to curve these so that rather than being just a kind of sharp join, we get a nice smooth join. And to do that, we can use the fillet tool. And within the fillet tool, basically the fillet tool gives us a curved corner where two edges meet or two surfaces meet at the edge. And so we can go into here and select the radius. We can decide how big or small a curve can be. What you do have to be conscious of though is if you make the curve too big or well, usually too big, too small is not so much an issue, but if you make it too big, you can find it simply won't work because the space available for the curve to exist is not big enough. So I'm going to keep it 2 millimeters for now. And there's two different ways that you can create a fillet. One is by simply selecting a radius of 2 millimeters, and then we just go around and we actually select the area that we want to fillet. So if we just use the fillet tool here, you can see that the area highlights. The computer I'm using just now is a wee bit slow, but it does, you'll see highlight. And that allows us to individually go around and add our fillets to specific areas. Now, if I wanted, however, to make that fillet go all the way around that section, what I would want to do is when I go into the fillet tool, use this tool at the right hand side here that says loop. When I use loop, what it should do is you'll see it picks up that whole loop of edges that fall around here. Now it can take a little bit longer to process that, and on this computer I suspect it will. You can see that now instead of just filleting that one little bit, it's filleted all these edges all the way around. So I could apply that. And if I was happy with that, I could just leave it, or I could go and add some other things, like I could do fillets on these edges here to kind of curve them off if I wanted to. But what I could also do, and I'm just going to quickly show you how to do it, is I could add a chamfer instead. So chamfer is a bit different from a fillet in that it gives us a sloping edge rather than a curved edge. So for example, I could go into here and I could click there and add a chamfer. And you'll see that that gives me a sloping edge. Now, if I wanted it to come to a point at the top, what I could actually do is put in the distance there as 2.5 because we had specified the width of the fins to be 5 millimeters. Now we'll just see how this computer gets on because it's running awfully slow. Just try that again. So we'll try that 2.5. And if we do that with this edge here, and this edge here, what we should find is that we end up with a point at the top because the chamfer has come in halfway from, I think maybe we need to change that. The chamfer should anyway come in halfway from either side. I think could be that the chamfer is just slightly too big. I'd maybe need to make that a touch smaller. Just try it again with 2.2. It may also be that because I've got the fillet at the top there, it won't let me make the chamfer. So we'll just give it a try and see how it works. There we go. So that's it now. So you see that that would give us a kind of a pointed edge at the top there. And once again, I do apologise. The computer I'm using to record this is running very slowly, which is kind of making the whole process a bit stilted. So you can go around and you can use that basic principle to modify, for example, the edges around the hatch to smooth all that out, around the fins, the rockets and so on, just to make it a bit more aerodynamic. Beyond that, if you had a little bit more time, one of the things you could add is maybe add some little windows like portholes. So we would basically use the same principle as we did for making the door, whereby we create a new work plane that's just off the face. There are other ways of doing it, but we'll try it this way first of all. So we'll get a new work plane, the origin tool or the origin options, and we want to choose this work plane, make it visible, and we're going to get a new work plane using the plane tool. I'm going to click and drag just like we did before, and we want it to be just offset from the surface wherever we're going to make this window. So I'm going to change the view to the side so that I can see exactly how far off that's sitting. So if I make it kind of somewhere up here, that's probably ideal. Drag that out a wee touch further. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm going to start sketch on that work plane. I've got it in the wrong side, so I'll just flip it around. There we go. And we can just draw whatever shape we want to be projected back here. So I'll just do a little window, make it about the same size as the one on the door that's already there. I'll not be too specific about sizes, you can decide what you want them to be. And we'll finish that sketch, extrude it, and we want it to be to next. And what we should find is that when we look at it, that goes right back to the surface there. That's fine, that's good. And click OK. And then you can do another sketch on top of that and create the little circle to make the inside. And you don't have to make them circular, by the way. You can make them whatever size you want them to be, or shape, should I say. Just add that in there. And finish your sketch. And then we can do it just a small extrusion going in the way, so a cut extrude here. And we'll just make it go in 1 millimeter, so it's just got a little bit of an edge. Maybe not even that much, to 0.5. Right, I mean, you can decide how far you want it to go in, right. And then, like before, we can go into these surfaces here and we can right click on them and go to properties, and we can make them look like other things. So I'll just try and find a blue kind of color. That's not really worked. Maybe just try something different. I think probably glazing, if there's something solid behind it, it's kind of clear, so it doesn't let you make it actually appear that way. Try it. There we go. Cadet blue looks better. So you could do that, and you could repeat them. You may even be able to do a circular pattern using the circular pattern tool here to copy that around the axis. Sorry, as I was saying, if you wanted to do a circular pattern around that, you can use the circular pattern tool here. You can choose the feature, which is the porthole, and you can choose the rotation axis. So that's the one here, and we need to choose a line that goes up the middle. So we're going to go into our origin folder here, try and find one of the axes that cuts up the middle, and then we can just choose how many we want. So 6 looks about right. And that should just repeat that feature all the way around. You would need to then repeat the feature inside it, which was that little cut. So again, rotation axis, and then OK. And that just creates your little portholes. So you'd have to go around and individually colour them, but you can appreciate that will kind of speed the process up. Finally, you could, if you wanted to modify things, like add a little what's the word? A wee kind of an aerial, like a point coming out of the top here. So you could create a sketch on a on this work plane here, and you could just draw the shape of that. So really, we're just drawing a little, very thin, kind of half the shape that we're going to revolve. We'll give it a sharp point, so just make that quite steep. Make that come down here. And we need to make that join back up. So we can hit F7 to slice graphics to cut it open, and that will allow us to see the surface on the keyboard. You may find that it will just pick it up anyway, but I'm just going to do slice graphics to make sure I'm putting it in the right place. Just taking its time. There we go. And we just make sure we join these up, because it won't work if it's not solid profile. And then you can hit your finish sketch button and use your revolve tool. Got your profile, and the next thing we need, you'll see is highlighted here, is looking for the axis. And you can click OK. And then you could obviously choose the surface of that and color it however you wanted it to be. So there's a few things that you can do there that will give you a little bit more to do if you're a wee bit ahead. But beyond that, really feel free to be creative. Go back and kind of modify the original shapes if you want to by opening up the initial revolve here that you did, and the sketch that you created. You can right click and edit that, and you can maybe modify the shape of this, but be aware if you do that, the doors and the portholes might no longer be in quite the right place. You might need to adjust them as well. Okay.